we're not in that do or die like survival situation right now. We can just buy something else at the grocery store or the restaurant, so it's not really analogous. But if we were in that case of a survival situation, then it's just different rules, and like you have the right to survive and you have the right to defend yourself if an animal's attacking you or something. um, but these cows, pigs, chickens, and fish have done nothing wrong. They're just chilling, minding their own businesses, totally innocent and vulnerable. And here we come as this bigger being, this species that thinks that because we have enough power to do whatever we want to those who are weaker than us, that we're therefore justified in doing
So
that.
you think so you think all animals are bigger and strong? So you think we're bigger and stronger than all animals that we can kill and eat?
Well, in the sense that, like, intellectually at least, like, we're the smartest, we're the dominant species. We can, like, do or whatever we want to pretty much any other animal, like, but just because we can do that doesn't mean we should do that, right? So, like, in the same, I see it as similar to like bullying a little kid, because well, we're bigger than them, we're smarter than them, we can push them around if we want to. It gives us pleasure, like, feel like a big tough guy to push this little kid around. And so, but we wouldn't use that, we wouldn't support that,
So what do you so what do you so what do you say to a family that doesn't have enough money to go out and buy groceries to be vegan? What if they only have their what if they can only eat what they hunt and go to
Yeah,
the store to buy simple necessities like
sure.
drinks and
Yeah,
all
so
that?
yeah, I understand. So like if you're in a real situation where you cannot have access to plant foods, then you're not our target audience. You're not that type of person, like in a third world or a tribe or some really desperate, maybe some homeless people, though I have known many homeless vegans, but that can be easier said than done, so the idea though is that if you can excuse me, if you can go vegan, you should go vegan, because the animals really need your help. But try to do the
But
best you.
what if I don't like eating that kind of stuff? That stuff's nasty, bro. I'm trying to eat me some meat, bro. I ain't even cat with you.
Okay, so do you understand what we're saying about the, like, before we move on to about taste and stuff? You understand that
Yeah,
we're not trying to judge people who are in a bad situation. We're just trying to say if you live in the first world and you're able to afford this stuff, which is not super expensive, like the cheapest foods at the grocery store are vegan. You got stuff like rice, pasta, big old bag of beans,
bro. But
fruit.
I'm not trying to weigh
Hold on.
110 pounds.
Sorry. I'm
I ain't
just
trying to
hold on.
weigh
Hold on.
110
Sorry,
pounds my entire
Parks.
life.
Hold on. Sorry, I'm just in the middle of a sentence. So I'll try not to interrupt you, but I just want to make sure everybody in the audience, not just you, everybody knows that we got rice, pasta, fruits, vegetables, seeds, nuts, beans, bread. All right, super super cheap, delicious stuff. Put some spices on it, some sauce. There's no problem. We also got vegan burgers if you have access to stuff like that, but not everybody does. But we got vegan pizza, vegan sausage, vegan chicken, vegan ice cream, whatever you want. We have a vegan version of it. So
Vegan ice cream, bro.
yeah, for sure. It's made out of like soy milk, coconut milk, almond milk,
But so
cashew.
soy milk don't come from animals.
No, soy is a
How
soybean.
was it made then?
It's a
Oh,
soybean.
okay. Well, can we move on to the taste and stuff like that?
Okay, well, yeah, we were transitioning into that anyways, but yeah, the idea is like there's all kinds of delicious vegan food out there. Um,
But
so,
what if
we'll,
my taste buds are different than yours?
well, your taste buds are not more important than an animal's life. So, in the
Why
same way
not?
that, like, well, because, like, think, okay, if that were true, then it'd be fine to like murder dogs, random dogs, just because
Do
you.
you think you think I should suffer in each meal I eat and be disgusted out because I can't take an animal's life? But I'm not taking a life. I'm buying it from the store.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Is that
So,
funny, Jordan? Or
so
are you
how,
gonna come up with some more cases of burning cats? But
okay, so would you kill the animal yourself?
yes, of course I will.
Okay,
I run it over with my
have you
car.
ever have you ever been inside a slaughterhouse?
Of course I have.
Okay, have you ever slit throats 8 hours a day as a slaughterhouse worker?
No, but I've slit throats about 3 hours a day.
Okay, so you kind of know what we're talking about here. So,
You ever shot a deer before?
I'm gonna post my brother's the hunter. I'm the animal rights activist, but we'll post a little article about how slaughterhouse workers get essentially PTSD trauma from doing this.
But
So,
that's their
hold on,
decision
sorry.
to work
Hey,
there.
hey,
That's their
Perks,
decision to
Perks,
work
Perks.
there.
Though, sorry, middle of a sentence again. So if you just like,
Oh my bad. You must
all
be the
right,
teacher or something,
yeah,
bro.
yeah, just trying to make sure we don't talk over
My
each other.
fault.
Okay, so
Yeah, my fault. My
yeah,
fault.
it's all good, but I want to hear what you have to say. But yeah, the point I was just making is that slaughterhouse workers get what's called perpetrator-induced stress disorder, and it's come from some slitting throats all day. Like it's not good for people to be in this position, and most meat eaters would not want to do this job themselves or have to kill the animal themselves in order to eat every meal. And so they pay somebody else to do their dirty work for them. And I used to do this for 26 years. I ate animals and never thought about slaughterhouse workers or what it's like to be the animal inside the slaughterhouse. But then one day, I started to realize, well, I wouldn't want to be treated like this. I don't treat dogs like this. I wouldn't want to treat my enemies like this. Like these animals are like tortured and murdered
You
at a
would.
very early age.
You wouldn't want to treat your enemies like that. So you got a guy coming at you to kill you. You wouldn't kill him.
I'm not saying that, but like again, because I said earlier, we have the right to defend ourselves. But enemy in the
Yeah.
sense of like
All
if
right.
somebody who done me wrong, like if I don't have to kill somebody, but they're my enemy, like uh, plus these
But how do
animals
you
like
expect all these? So you
but
think all restaurants? I mean, I'm sorry about interrupting you, bro. You're
it's
talking
okay.
like
No,
so long.
go ahead.
So you think all these restaurants who have to live, like have to serve food to live, you think they should all go to vegan?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, for the same reason that like we have laws to protect certain groups of individuals, like humans.
Bro, but if every restaurant's the same, why would you want to eat there?
Well, no, it all like I said, we've got
Because there's not like
well, hold
there's
on.
not a
Look, we've got vegan burgers and vegan pizza and all this stuff. So there's cuisine that from all over the world, different spices of India or of China or Mexico, whatever you want. Like there's vegan versions of all that stuff, and it's delicious. And there's already.
Alright,
Go ahead.
so you think PTSD from slaughterhouses? You think it's more important than PTSD from getting PTSD from being in the military and shooting people? Which one do you think is more important?
I don't think we need to compare either of those. Why are we bringing war into it?
Okay, but you're talking about PTSD from slaughtering animals. They take that responsibility on themselves. They go and apply for that job.
No, most no
They
no
can
no
apply
no
for any job.
no.
But you're
So
saying you're being forced into it.
no. So most of these people are in severe economic, distressful situations where they don't. This is the best job they can get. Either they're like,
In the United States,
yeah. So a lot of times they're immigrant workers who can't find a better job. Areas where there's a lot of crime and a lot of poverty, where people don't have much of an opportunity because the slaughterhouse stinks. Like you said, you've been in one. Well, they stink like feces and blood. So like, and it goes for miles. So and same with farms. And but yeah, so like if you care about
I know what it smells like, bro. I literally worked at one time. Bro. You
right,
gotta tell
right.
me, I know.
Right, so they don't put that in Beverly Hills.
I
You know
worked
what I
there
mean?
for 22 years.
Yeah, so it's predominantly
I mean, I'm actually
it's
still working.
sorry,
I'm
sorry,
not a
it's
manager.
yeah, but it's like marginalized groups, like the neighborhoods of people who are already oppressed to some degree that have to deal with this kind of environmental devastation that comes from having a factory farm or a slaughterhouse in your neighborhood, and then they
Huh?
work there,
You just said they're in bad areas, so I mean, I wouldn't really honestly care.
well, there are areas where like people need help, not they don't need more trauma, they don't need more bad situations, but we're adding that in. And again, it's not good for the environment, and it's definitely not good for the animals, and
So you think,
it's not good for our health either. So like there's like all kinds of reasons, from human rights to animal rights to health, the environment, of why not to do this. So why, like, pick one of
it
those,
sounds like
like
to me
pick sorry
that you
sorry
think
sorry 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 1 second, pick one of those reasons and run with it, or pick all of them.
it sounds like to me you think animals have more rights than humans.
No, I think that animals should have the basic right to not be stabbed in the throat just because you enjoy the taste of
All
their
right,
dead
bro.
body.
Tell me how many times you walk around outside and just see an animal getting stabbed in the throat, like we're in the
No,
park or
they're
something.
happening in the slaughterhouses, just like you
No,
know.
I'm talking about outside. How many times you see that happen outside?
What does that have to do with anything?
Because you're talking about you're talking about animals getting freaking stabbed in the side of the neck, but
Yeah, in the slaughterhouse. We raise and kill 70 billion land animals every year just for food that we don't need to eat across the world. 70 billion, that's 10 times the human population every year. And they're killed as babies. Like the natural lifespan of a.
yeah, and also
Hold on, sorry?
animal. My bad, I interrupted the teacher. You can go ahead.
Uh huh. Thanks, though. The
I thought it was a.
yeah,
Oh, my bad.
the natural lifespan of a pig is just like a dog, about 12 years old. But pigs are killed when they're only 6 months old because that's when they reach slaughter weight. Because it wouldn't be profitable for the farmer to keep feeding the animal day after day for months and years to let them live a nice, happy, long life. And so they just kill them when they're children, right? 6 months
So you
old.
think animals have a conscious conscience?
That's like killing a puppy. What do you think about puppies? You think puppies got conscience?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, so you down with kicking puppies?
Yep, absolutely.
All right, well, we'll just move on to the next caller then. So
All right,
we've all we've
you're too soft to handle the truth of what I gotta say.
yeah, so we've already got enough laws protecting dogs from being kicked, which most of the people in the audience support. So that's good. So we're just gonna move on to somebody else. There's like 39 people got their hands up. So let's get some people talking here. Let's go with Bunny. Bunny, come on up. And everybody, I'm posting pictures and videos in stage one text of important sources that back up our claims and like different vegan food and cute puppies and pigs and stuff. So check out stage one text. All right, Bunny, what's up?
Alright, okay. So I have like two questions. So my first one is like, okay, like I'm wondering why vegans put their pets on vegan diets because like I feel like some animals need to like eat meat. I feel like, because like, I don't know, I've just seen like backlash from people putting their pets on vegan diets and it just seems kind of odd that they would do that.
Okay, so yeah, I'll post some scientific sources that explain more about how vegan dog and cat food can be nutritionally adequate. Um, But yeah, so we want to also, and if anybody has any counter studies that show something else, you're welcome to post that in stage one text. Because we always want to be open minded to make sure we got everything right. And if you think you got it better, let's hear it. And we can battle it out with our scientists. But the idea is that you may have seen some bad experiences, if that's even true. Like sometimes we want to make sure that we're not mixing up correlation with causation. So just because two things happen around the same time doesn't mean that one of those things caused the other necessarily, though maybe it did. So we want to look into more than just did they occur at the same time. Plus, if we're just talking about like one or two cases, like there could have been some other underlying factor that actually led to the problem, if there was indeed a problem. So those kind of anecdotes are just not as powerful of a form of evidence. Sometimes they can be helpful, but they're just not as powerful as what I'm including right here, which is like scientific sources, like a bunch of them, of vegan dogs and cats and yeah, dogs and cats on a vegan diet. So check that out, and you can get back to us. I don't expect you to read all these studies right now, but that's an overview. Do you have any thoughts or questions about that?
Um, no, but do y'all support the vegan teacher? Like, I'm genuinely curious.
Okay, so I don't know much about the vegan teacher. I haven't followed her account, but I think she said a couple things at least that I found problematic. And so, yeah, some without throwing somebody all the way under the bus, a lot of us activists do a lot of good work, and then we mess up sometimes, and we need to hold ourselves and each other to a very high standard so that we make sure that the message is communicated effectively and without being super problematic. Like there's some level of controversy that's okay, being confrontational can be a good like strategic thing without it and it not be actually immoral or like a violation of somebody's rights or being racist or something like this or homophobic. So whenever we see that kind of stuff though, we need to like speak out against it. But generally speaking, being confrontational can be a good thing because it gets a lot of people talking about the issue, wanting to learn more about it. So like they'll be like, and the initial reaction may be really negative, like what did this crazy vegan say, or they did some crazy protest inside of a restaurant or something. But then that leads them to ask, can you even be healthy on a vegan diet? Like, how are you going to get your protein? And so they start like having conversations like what we're doing right now, where you're asking, you and there's like 150 other people in this room listening, who are now wanting to learn more. And so popularizing the issue, getting media coverage because something is dramatic can be a really effective form of activism. We see that with other social justice movements like the women's right to vote movement the civil rights movement, the gay rights movement, anti-war movement, all kinds of stuff, labor movements. Disruption is a really powerful tool, but it's not the only tool. So like what we're doing right here is just educational outreach, just polite conversations, answering all your questions, showing our scientific sources and stuff like that.
Like, I used to live in East LA for the longest time, and like, I want to say 10, 15 minutes from my old house is where a big Foster Farm, like, Slaughterhouse plant used to be.
Yeah.
And I used to work there for a long time.
Oh yeah.
Like a long, long time. And you know, it's not right how those animals are being treated. Let me preface this: I'm not vegan. I don't want to be vegan, but I do understand why some people are. Those Foster Farms, not Foster Farm, Farmer John Slaughterhouse, terrible.
Yeah,
like,
I've been there.
Not only was our pay terrible, but just like the way everything was terrible. Me personally, I did not have any PTSD from being a slaughterhouse worker, and I was slitting pig throats, I was slitting cow throats, and it's just something that did not personally affect me, and I still do eat meat. But there was a lot of mistreatment of animals in there. Like 3 talks ago or 4 talks ago, Luke, he was very, very aggressively non-vegan. He was very anti-vegan, and it just kind of, I hate that because it closes off bridges for us to communicate instead of having to fight with each other. But back to what I was saying, I moved location. I now work at a free-range farm, and we do take more care of our animals, and there we do allow our pigs and our cows to live a little bit of a longer life. Not full years, because then we have to deal with regulations of having to cut out the spine, and then it stops some of the usable meat from being sold. And it sounds terrible when you put it like that, but if you cut out the spine, at a certain age you have to cut out the spine to prevent mouth cow disease from spreading, stuff like that. But in this farm, like, we take much better care of our animals, and we do treat them like pets. And when it comes time to sell them and process them, it's a much more humane, I want to say, process. It's
Okay.
still death, and it's always going to be death, but it is much less violent.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's talk about a few of those things. I just posted a video in Stage 1 text called Slaughterhouse Worker Goes Vegan, and you might find it interesting, and other people as well. So, yeah, and then there's like another video I'll post called Cattle Rancher Goes Vegan. And I just think these kind of transformational stories are really impacting. I understand it hasn't happened with you, at least yet. I think you'll be radicalized by the end of this conversation. You'll have a megaphone in your hand in no time, don't worry. Even people who have committed these, violent acts against animals can change. Not everybody will, but at least you understand the reality of how most animals are treated for meat, dairy, and eggs. But even if we talk about like a more ideal situation where maybe the animals have a nice life and then they're killed quickly and painlessly without a bunch of fear, that's not the majority of the situation. So people need to realize that. And in order to feed 8 billion people animal products, we have to resort to factory farming just to keep the kill line moving that fast to supply that much of a demand for these products. And even if these animals were killed quickly and painlessly, that's still animal cruelty. It's still cruel to cut their heads off, no matter how quick you do it. And if we don't need to do it, it's unnecessary animal cruelty. And these animals had their whole lives ahead of them. They're killed when they're very young. The natural lifespan of a cow is 25 years old, but they're killed when they're only 18 months old, like a year and a half. So they're killed when they're children, and that's just not okay with us, and we're shutting it down. So, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, sorry, I kind of lost track a little bit. Yeah, no, but I do 100% agree with what you're saying. The way that these kill lines are moving, it's too much. It's just not right. Like, we just don't get we just don't get rid of. It sounds so terrible. We don't. Let me think of a better word. We don't process all of our animals. The most clinical term, we don't process all of our animals. We let some of them live to be old and die old. That is something that my farm, and especially with me and a couple of my other cousins, we have decided that is what we want to do. We will process some of our animals because that is a way of our life, and it is something that we need to do as a family in order to keep this going. Because
Okay.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
If you need to say something.
Yeah, thanks. So I appreciate your input. I'm going to post in Stage 1 text a resource. This is a link to a website called Rancher Advocacy. So this is the rancher advocacy program put on by that cattle rancher in the previous video who went vegan. So they were cattle ranchers, her and her husband, in Texas, and they, got the strong accent and everything, and they've been doing this for years, and it's been passed down through generations. They turned their cattle farm into an animal sanctuary after they went vegan. And so they stopped sending their animals to slaughter, and they take on other animals who need homes. They turned it into like a nonprofit that receives donations and stuff. And they have the Ranchers Advocacy Program, which is a way that they help other animal farmers transition to plant farming if they're interested in doing so. So I don't know what the logistics are of your specific farm. If you find motivation to stop, sending these animals to slaughter and letting them live out their full lives and not breeding them and, taking on rescue animals at some point if you can, that kind of thing, this is a resource to help you at least learn what they're talking about with that kind of transition. And then they have the same kind of thing in the UK for from the Vegan Society. So that's something I would look into. I don't know what your situation is, but the idea is, like, again, these animals want to live just as much as dogs and cats, just as much as you and I. They value their lives, and if we don't actually need to kill them, I really don't think we should, because we wouldn't want it done to us if we were in their position and they've done nothing wrong.
Let me be honest if I can. Honestly, like, if someone needed to kill me in order to survive, like if they wanted to eat me as food, I have absolutely no qualms with that. If it needed to happen, like, or even if they needed to survive and I was their only way that they would survive, if they needed to eat me, I have no qualms with that as long as they use my entire body and maybe just burn my bones and spread the ashes.
You might try to fight back, but right, you might.
I would not. If they needed to eat, like if it was a life or death situation, or if like it was, I'm already kind of old.
Okay.
I'm in my 50s.
So you would sacrifice for them?
100%.
That's
100%.
nice. I think that's really nice of you.
Yeah. But like I feel like that's something, as a rancher, as a hunter, as like someone, that's kind of my way of thought. If these animals are willing to, well, I don't know if they're actually willing. Honestly, I don't even know if animals have consciences, but I personally believe that we take good care of them. I think they understand what happens, and if they're willing not to run away, if they're willing to stay, because we're free range. We have very little border around our ranch. We let them roam. If they escape, we try to find them, and if they do it 2, 3, 4 times, then we will look for a sanctuary for them to go to. That is how we run our ranch.
Okay, well, let me ask you about that. Like, just because some individual, whether they're human or animal, just because some individual is like so unintelligent that they can't figure out how to escape, or that they even like that's an option, that shouldn't like give us the right to inflict needless violence on them, though, right?
I agree with that. But like, we walk our pigs around the perimeter. We walk our cows around the perimeter. We let them know as much as we can that they are free to go if they so choose to. We let them roam.
Well,
Only thing we have is we have some herding dogs to make sure that they don't get attacked by animals.
okay, but I guess I'm still wondering this whole thing of like just because they don't realize like their life is still valuable to them. It still has meaning. They derive pleasure. They probably have relationships with other animals, or if they're solitary, they enjoy the sun on their back and fresh air and good food and just enjoying the day, taking a nap. You know, just basic stuff. Like sure they're not as
Yeah.
intelligent as us. They can't build big cities or write orchestras or anything like this, but or write symphonies. But neither can humans who have a mental disability that is like
Oh yeah.
impacting them to the point where they're only as intelligent as a cow, pig, or chicken. They
Yeah. No.
still
I
they
agree with that.
still they still
I
have
understand that.
they still have a basic meaning to their life, and I don't want to take that away from them if I don't need to. So I don't,
I completely understand. I
so I
completely understand where it comes from.
yeah. So one question I would have is like, would it like if you were to be persuaded by the ethical arguments? And I'm not saying you have to be persuaded that by that right now, but if you were to keep having these conversations and come to the conclusion that it would be better for the animals to be allowed to live so that they can enjoy their future. That's just the main thing. Is again, even if they're killed quickly and painlessly, they have a future waiting to be enjoyed. So if you were to come around to respecting that, do you think you could logistically, like practically, transition to a vegan farm, like a plant-based farm?
Um,
Is
Let me ask you something, and this may sound a little intrusive, and please tell me if it is. If it is, then I will stop. But how old are you,
I'm
Chase?
I'm 39 on a good day.
Okay, okay. So me being 57, I've been having these conversations with vegans, even though they were small communities back then. I have been having conversations with them, probably before you were born. And for me personally, it hasn't changed. I have no problems with anyone that does decide to go vegan. If they choose to go vegan, more power to you. But to me, I don't know if it's that I don't have the will to, if I'm just not in the right mindset. And at this age, I don't think I'll ever be in the right mindset, to be honest with you, Chase. But if it ever does happen, then I 100% will decide to go more vegan than we are. As it is right now, we only feed our dogs meat that we cannot sell. Like if we have to remove the spine from an older cow when we process them, we will feed them the scraps. Other than that, we keep them pretty low meat, unless it's hunting or something like that. Then we'll give them a treat of meat. That's how I feed my dogs, and I have 7 of them.
Sure, but
Um,
like I guess I'm just trying to get to the point of
go,
can't
go ahead.
could if you wanted to go vegan, if you wanted to go vegan, could you go vegan and turn and stop killing animals on your farm?
At this point, with the current economy, no, I could not. As it is, we do get some of our profit from selling grains. We sell lentils, we sell rice. And me personally, I love fruit. I love vegetables. I love growing different varieties in my farm. I have this own little. How big is it? I don't even remember. I can't remember my old age, but it's just filled with 4 trees of different kinds for different fruits for different nuts, and I personally love them.
Okay, cool. Yeah, yeah, that's great. And that's what I want to see more of. And I'm just wondering if there's any kind of alternative to where you can make money some other way instead of killing the animals. If you can like get a job, like if you can't grow crops on your farm for whatever reason, then can you get a job somewhere else? Can you get unemployment? Can you get social security? Is there something you could do? Turn into a nonprofit, animal sanctuary? Is there no alternative to making money and feeding yourself?
For me, as it is, maybe my kids could do it. Maybe my kids, maybe my grandkids, maybe my great grandkids, maybe their great grandkids could do it. But as it is right now, with my family and my economic standing, I could not do it. I would not be able to survive at all
Okay.
and keep my ranch as it is.
Okay.
And that's a
Well,
family ranch.
okay, yeah. So then that would be another question, though. Is like, because seriously, if you were to want to go vegan, you would try to find ways to do it. And so the last way, it sounds like, if we're making a list, would be to like sell your ranch and move somewhere to where you don't have to kill animals in order to survive.
Yes, that would be in a dream world, yes. But in a dream world, I would not have to sell my ranch. As it is,
Okay,
That's how
what I would
get done.
recommend, what I would recommend at this point, just because we have a lot of other callers that want to talk, and I've appreciated the dialogue we've had. It's been very respectful. You sound like a nice person. I would just, as hard as you can, try to push yourself outside your comfort zone and outside of your traditions, and think about what the animals are going through and how their preferences should be factored in as much as we can in our lives, and that if people can go vegan, they should go vegan, because these animals really need our help. And I just see them as very similar to like little kids. They enjoy the day. They play out in the yard with their friends and stuff. And if I don't have to harm them, I don't want to. But I'm not perfect either. Like I crush bugs just walking across the yard, and I find that unfortunate, and I wish it didn't have to happen. But that's just not realistic. So I realize that we can't be perfect, but the idea is to minimize the amount of harm we cause to the world, whether it's to humans or animals, as much as we can, because we share this earth with other individuals, and we should not just needlessly oppress them.
Yeah, I agree. If Mason, one more thing
Yeah.
before I leave. Um, I appreciate you for being vegan, and I appreciate you for helping stop the cruelty of animals. Um, I also want to say thank you for not being a toxic vegan, because I've ran into many in my life, and honestly, I've been attacked by some of them with knives. And one of my dogs, God rest his soul, was they threw acid at me, but it landed on her.
Oh man.
Yeah, so I just want to say thank you for giving me a time. Wouldn't mind having me back. I would appreciate an ad on Discord. I barely figured out how to work this.
Yeah, for
Thank
sure.
you.
Yeah, I'll send you a friend request right now, and I'm sorry that that happened to you.
Yeah,
Even the crazy vegans are usually not violent, and I'm known for being a crazy vegan too. You got lucky today. That's all that happened. But I'm gonna post a video for you called "The Best Speech You Will Ever Hear" in stage one text, and everybody should check this out. It's a really powerful speech about animal rights that goes into depth about all this stuff. So check this out, and yeah, talk to us again soon. It was nice talking to you.
yeah. One more thing. I just want all of you to have a wonderful day. If vegan is your option, I hope you do it. If it's not your cards, then have a great day.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon. Okay, so I just want to make sure that everybody knows that like a lot of times we think we can't do something, but we actually can. Sometimes we actually can't do something, and that's a different situation. But sometimes we underestimate the power that we hold, or how easy something might actually be, just because we get motivated by fear, and it can be hard to think outside the box for all of us sometimes. Change can be scary, but the idea is to really question whether or not this is as big of a challenge as we think it is, and how strong are we really, and how badly do the victims need our help. So those are things to factor in. Okay, Jordan, how you doing today?
Doing pretty okay. How are you, Chase?
I'm pretty good.
Hello, my name's Brittany. I want to start this off by saying I was actually vegan for about half my life, actually. About the ages of 9 to not that long ago, actually. The only reason I really stopped is because I actually started to develop an eating disorder. So I've just started eating meat so that I don't go back into that. I don't know if or when that will change. I really appreciate the cause. I believe you have noble intentions. But one issue that I found, when you're eating vegan, chances are you are still exploiting brown and black people, immigrant workers who can't get paid well, often are paid late. So I feel like that morality point is not really as big, or at least that moral high ground isn't really that big if it exists at all, if it makes sense.
Okay, so yeah, human rights is really important, and I'm glad that you care about that. We care about it also. Slaughterhouse workers are really exploited. They get higher rates of PTSD, higher rates of domestic abuse and crime where slaughterhouses exist. And so we there's many different ways to go about transforming the workplace, like regardless of what industry we're talking about, to make sure that workers are treated with respect, and I don't want to get too political on it, but
Yeah.
I'm in agreement with you that we need to do stuff to reform workers' rights. And so stuff like
Yes.
socialism, social democracy, even communism, these are things that I recommend people learn about instead of just thinking that capitalism is going to solve all our problems. But we can't focus too much on those issues right now, and that's just me. All right, so there's lots of vegan capitalists out there, so uh, but in any case, we don't need like we can't be perfect in this world. We realize we can't be perfect, but
That is true.
we try to minimize the amount of harm we cause. And if we find an industry that we think should be boycotted, and because it's massive rights violations of humans or animals, and if there's an alternative to this product that's easily accessible and things like that, if it's a and if and depending on if it's a super needed product, there's a lot of things to factor in there. But I think we should try to be minimalists also, to some degree at least. I don't think we should be just mindless consumers that are buying a lot of unnecessary products. It's nice to splurge on yourself a little bit every now and then, but I'm not big on luxury items and stuff like that. So, but yeah, we should fight for human rights and animal rights, is my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase what I'm trying to say. Sorry, I'm really bad at.
No, it's okay. But like while you're putting together your thoughts in stage one text, I'll post some articles to like vegans of color, people of color who are vegan, care about human rights, animal rights, the environment, our health, all these good reasons to eat a plant based diet.
I just feel like before we focus all our energy on trying to get people to become vegan, because first off, feasibly, you're never going to get 100% of the population to become vegan. Firstly, we need to make, not vegan, sorry, more ethical options available. Because most of the meat I get from local farmers. They treat their animals well. I know this because I'm related to them. But the average person can't get that. And even people who live outside that norm, like indigenous people who live in food deserts, being vegan, if you are indigenous in a food desert, it's not going to be really that available.
Sure. Yeah. So can I respond to that real quick?
Oh yeah, of course.
Cool. Thanks. So yeah, the idea is that if you can't go vegan, then you're not our target audience. And so we understand that some people live in really bad situations and they don't have easy access maybe to a grocery store. So we're trying to get people who are in a position of power and privilege to use that power and privilege for a good cause, for human rights and animal rights, but buy vegan products so that there's more vegan products being sold, and then companies realize that it's profitable and popular, and so they'll start manufacturing and selling these products, which makes it easier, because of like trade, not just in one country, but international trade as well. It would increase the likelihood that those vegan products would be at Burger King or at every gas station. So that people in like low income areas would have easier access to these foods, because a lot of people want to go vegan but can't go vegan. But generally speaking, it seems that most people actually can go vegan, but they choose not to. And that's what we're really focusing on.
Yes, but I believe that those people, even if they can go vegan, you're not going to get 100% of people that can go vegan too.
Okay. All right. So
make like agro meat. Sorry?
Well, yeah, to that point though, like that, yeah, that's a problem that we encounter, that there's a lot of opposition against us. Vegans are only a small percentage of the population. Like, depending on where you live, it could be like 1% to 3% of the population. So, but the point is that back, in other social justice movements, like the women's right to vote movement or the civil rights movement or the gay rights movement, at the beginning of their movements, they were up against the majority. They didn't have a strong base behind them, but a small group of activists got together and thought about what are the most effective forms of activism and really just stood up for themselves and won their cause. And so I don't want to engage in like an appeal to futility. That's where we think like it's a fallacy of just thinking that well it's impossible to do, so we might as well not even try. When really we don't. I think we underestimate ourselves too often, and we don't realize what kind of collective power we actually do have as a people.
Yeah, but sorry. I think that at its core, instead of changing your message to go vegan because da 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 da, you should change it to try and reduce the amount of harm that you cause to the environment because da 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 da. You understand? I don't know if I'm making the point clear.
Yeah, I understand, but the thing is vegan is a nice, like, one word that encapsulates so many different industries. If it's properly understood, people realize that it's, an ethical position for the animals and that it incorporates things like meat, dairy, eggs, leather, fur, animal testing for cosmetics, circuses, zoos, stuff like that. So it is really focused on the animals, but it has these added benefits of being really good for the environment, being much better for people's health, stuff like that. And
Yeah,
does that make sense?
yeah. I
Because
feel like also. I'm
otherwise
sorry.
we'd have to say a lot more words to get across that same message. We'd have to say like boycott dairy and fur and leather and milk and meat and zoos
Yeah,
and circuses. So one word just condenses all that.
that's true. Um, but also I feel like one good thing to say is that if you are going to eat meat, utilize as much as the animal as you can because a lot of indigenous people do that. I'm Nigerian. Back home, pretty much you use everything but the hooves. Like you would make things out of leather. Like you use all parts of the animal, and that means that you use less meat per year. Like eating even like intestines, it's still pretty normal. Like it doesn't have to be like weird. It can
Well,
like they're all farm animals like that. You sorry?
go ahead, finish.
Oh yeah, like when I visited back home for Christmas, like yeah, seeing the like animals die is definitely like weird. It was weird to me, but it's definitely like half of my family's Muslim because my Nigeria is pretty much half Muslim, half Christian. Having animals killed in a halal way back home in your house is definitely a lot less bad for the environment and definitely a lot less amoral than like Oscar Mayer's like slaughterhouses, if you feel me.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely worse to torture an animal for a couple of years and then kill them rather than to let them have a couple of years of a decent existence and then kill them. But I don't want to kill happy animals either because clearly, like, they're enjoying their experience. So why would I want to take that from them?
Yeah, but also back home Nigeria is pretty corrupt. Sometimes it's like your only option. There's a lot of the crops that most vegans rely on. You can't really grow them back in Nigeria. It's hot. It's kind of dry. You rely on a lot of meat, like some of like native shrubbery that grows there, like, and then grains basically. It's just
Yeah,
meat, protein,
go ahead.
vegetable, part. That's it.
Yeah, I understand. So hopefully they can, increase their plant farming. Hopefully they'll have find the motivation. Like I know there's animal rights activists, like vegan activists in Africa and other third world countries where they're trying to convert their agricultural system into a plant-based one, and and hopefully they'll be successful in that as soon as possible. And they need the support of their fellow people who live in that country. So, but in the meantime, yeah, I mean, like I hear you. You got to do what you got to do to survive. But there's also this cool thing called vertical farming. So vertical farming is like an indoor plant farm that's like hydroponics. It's like a giant greenhouse, hydroponics and aeroponics, where the plants are stacked on top of each other, going up into the sky like a skyscraper building, and instead of going sideways, taking up a bunch of land. And so these buildings can be built in the desert. So on any kind of farm, or any kind of soil, because it's, indoor, and it's like 95% less water usage than traditional plant agriculture, and little pests like rodents and insects can't get inside the building, so there's no need for pesticides and stuff like this. So I personally think that, richer countries like here in the US, with all of our billionaires flying to space, and Amazon not paying any taxes and shit, I think we should be spending that money. I think we should be spending that money on social services for humans and animals, like increasing, better schools and housing for homeless people, and also, building these vertical farms in other parts of the world, not just our country. Like, I think we should help third world, like developing nations, become more sustainable and self-reliant by, giving them a boost, since we got all this extra money we're just sitting on. The money we put into the U.S. military is like out of control, like how much money they get. So yeah, so we should build those kinds of farms for other people, and then that would make it easier for them to eat a plant-based diet, and would also help the animals and the environment.
That is very noble. Nigeria and a lot of countries in Africa, the type of corruption they have is just, I don't even know how to describe it. If you implemented those farms in pretty much most of Nigeria, like Abuja, Lagos, the police are basically just pay for hires.
Oh, yeah.
Nigeria is pretty much an oligarchy. They would become privately owned and then either live out or just destroyed for more land.
Okay.
And sucks to your home country and such a state, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry? No. Yeah, I'm fine.
Well, I was just basically saying that I'm sorry that you and those other people have to live in that situation, and we should all, do our part to raise the issue of the global poor and try to alleviate poverty all across the world. But in the meantime, like, I would just recommend that you take a look at some of the stuff in Stage 1 text that we've been posting about the environment and animal rights and stuff like that. We'll move on to another caller here in just a second, but I want to read this one thing to you about the environment. So I just posted this picture of a Beyond Burger that's a vegan burger versus a beef burger. And so a Beyond Burger, a vegan burger, uses 99% less water, 93% less land, 90% fewer greenhouse gas emissions, and 45% less energy. And the text that I wrote here, these sources are: the USDA reported that it takes 16 pounds of plants to make 1 pound of beef, because the farmer has to feed the cow every day for 18 months to get them up to slaughter weight. And the University of Oxford reported that raising animals takes up 75% of our farmland, because we have to grow a bunch of crops to feed these animals. And 70% of the deforestation in the Amazon rainforest is used for raising cattle. And National Geographic reported that a vegan diet saves 600 gallons of water per day per person, because we have to water the crops that are fed to the animals and give the animals water to drink. And then lastly, the United Nations reported that the greenhouse gases coming from raising cattle is more than the entire transportation sector, which includes all cars, trucks, trains, planes, and ships. So a vegan diet is way better for the environment. So if we care about the environment and human rights and animal rights, we gotta switch over as soon as possible. But again, we understand some people are in a different situation where they're limited resources, so they're not, the people we're focusing on. All right, well, yeah, talk to us again soon, all right?
Yeah, sure. Actually, you guys seem really cool. I'm not gonna lie, I came in here with a bit of personal bias, but yeah, you guys are actually pretty chill.
Right on, cool. All right, well, we'll talk to you soon.
Almost manipulative to try to force that to people, saying the veganism is better, an alternative. I don't think that we should kill animals. I don't think that we morally, if we could avoid it entirely, if we could take meat in a more humane way.
I would push back on manipulation. I think what we're doing is showing people that veganism follows from most people's existing values. People don't think that animals should be caused harm unnecessarily. Most people think animal abuse is wrong. It's just the case that most people don't know what happens to these animals, right? So when you see footage of baby pigs being grabbed by their back legs and have their skulls slammed against concrete, it really puts it in perspective. It's like, yeah, can I justify buying bacon knowing that this happens to those pigs, knowing that my purchase is what, informs the demand that furthers the abuse of pigs. And it's like, well no, I don't think I do have a good reason to buy these products.
Yeah. You would say that.
What about you?
Well, I would say that it's a little bit more of a moral standpoint. There's obviously a sort of a guilt feeling because of those documentaries, because of that footage. That is obviously impactful, but it's also shock value to get you to think that way, which, kind of goes full circle. Don't you feel bad for that animal? That's manipulation in a sense. You are trying to manipulate the person's moral standing, whereas it's not that simple. It's on top of the guys who work there, the people who have built those farms, the people who are doing those jobs in those low-income areas. It's not as simple as just stop eating meat to affect the business. You're also going to affect, ultimately, people to probably not have a job, to maybe, have to live on welfare, which is certainly not something we need more of. We need less of. We need people to own jobs. We need people to want to start up businesses.
Yeah,
and I feel like
you made 2 points there. Mm-hmm. Sorry if you don't mind if I respond real quick.
No,
just
go ahead.
before I forget them. You made a point that the slaughter footage is like shock value and manipulative. Well, it's like we're just presenting the facts, right? Go into slaughterhouses, record what happens, and present the facts. And if that's interpreted as manipulative or shock value, then so be it. But this is what happens to animals. So if you're interpreting it as like shocking, I feel like that is in fact the correct response, right? And in terms of,
okay, I don't really have a good analogy for it, but go on.
Okay, yeah, I was just going to respond to your second point real quick. The fact that people profit and depend on an unethical industry isn't a good reason to continue that industry, right?
Well, some would say yes, some would say no, but it kind of goes back to my point that manipulating people's feelings and moralities to sacrifice something for something else, it's just, I don't feel like it's being presented as, hey, if you go vegan, you're not causing animal suffering, but also you're probably actively going against a billion-dollar industry where the target employee is ultimately That's manipulation, is it not?
Can I jump in here real quick?
Chase, go ahead.
Is that okay, Jordan?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so basically, we're going to move on to another caller in just a minute here, but basically, I don't think it's manipulation, it's just education. We're just, if this was happening to dogs or humans, we would be doing the exact same thing, and you would probably be agreeing with us at that point, because, you probably... Sorry
to stop you there, but, this is happening to dogs. This is happening to humans.
And
same thing.
Yeah, but does that upset you? Do you think that's unethical? It's something that should be stopped? Like we should have laws. We should have laws against.
Of course, but
cruelty.
Those things. Well, let's take the dog aspects out of it, because honestly, across the world, there is an industry. There is jobs that rely on slaughtering dogs for food.
Yeah, but we don't accept that.
We don't accept that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying does it exist. I'm saying should it exist. In your mind, do you think these things are okay to have around, or should we employ people to do other jobs where they're not committing crimes against humans or animals?
Once again, I kind of go back to the manipulation part. No, I don't think that's appropriate. No, I don't think that's a progressive way for a society to go. But because there's an industry, because there's an economy behind it, you're missing a large portion of a potential, hey, us doing this could cause this. You're only stating the good, you're not giving the full message.
Well, we're trying to stay focused on the animals instead of the people who are hurting the animals. Okay, but because they're the real victims, so the humans causing the oppression are not the ultimate victims here. They're not getting priority. Okay, so we need to hold ourselves and each other accountable for our actions and realize that we have no legitimate justification for doing these violent things to these innocent little animals, little babies and their mothers, and we cut their heads off for no good reason other than, well, this is the society, this is what we're doing, so we're just going to keep doing it. No, like, those are not good reasons. None of the reasons you can provide are any good, and I just want you to realize that. Like, there will be other jobs. I'm sorry for getting heated here, but it's just like there will be other jobs that pop up. When we start, it will just replace a slaughterhouse with a factory that creates vegan burgers. Okay, so and even if there were no job to replace it, like that, and that's just not the case we're in. But immoral, violent jobs should not exist. We should rid them from our society.
But in the same breath, I heard you say also, I mean, this was in literally the same breath, we're interested in human rights, but, you said something about, but communism would be a better way to do that. And I don't see, I see a disconnect here, obviously.
Okay, well,
you're telling half the story.
Well, we only have,
there's other things.
But friend, we only have certain amount of time to talk about this issue, and so yeah, we talk about like how veganism, like a plant-based diet is better for your health. It's going to decrease your risk of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, certain forms of cancer. We talk about how a plant-based diet is better for the environment, both in land use, water use, greenhouse gas emissions. These are all things that are affecting humans. And yeah, we talk about like the PTSD that slaughterhouse workers get from slitting throats 8 hours a day, and we do care about the humans who are negatively impacted by animal agriculture and by systems of oppression in general, which, yeah, I'll say it again, is partly due to capitalism. So there's a lot of different issues that we can care about, but right now we're trying to talk about animal rights. Like,
totally disagree. I don't even think we'd be having this conversation without capitalism.
Okay, well, we're not going to talk more about capitalism and communism right now because, again, we're trying to stay focused on the animals. And you can be a vegan capitalist or you can be a vegan communist. Either way, we don't need to pay people to stab animals. Okay, so we need to stop doing that. And if people can't find, okay, so that's just the end of it.
I was telling Jordan the same thing. There doesn't have to be that human interaction to slaughter animals.
No, we don't want robots. No, hold on. We're going to move on now, but we don't want robots killing animals either. Okay, we don't want animals killed. That's our thing.
Right. I get that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So look, we have these stages every day. So if you didn't get all the chance you want, you can come talk to us again tomorrow. There'll probably be different hosts on who will give you different input. Also, everybody in the audience, if you want to talk and you're not getting a chance because the wait is really long, you can go down to VC3. There's like 6 people talking in VC3 or VC6. There's like 10 people talking in there. So you can just join the conversation right away.
Is it wrong to eat plants because they're living things?
No.
Just a question.
No, so plants are living organisms, but they're not sentient. They don't have a brain or a nervous system, so they're not conscious individuals who care how they're treated. And even if they were, we kill more plants by growing a bunch of plants to feed to the 70 billion land animals that are raised and killed for food every year across the world. So it takes 16 pounds of plants to make 1 pound of beef, because the farmer has to feed the cow for 18 months to get her up to slaughter weight. But if we just ate those plants directly or used that land that was used to grow those plants, like hay or soy that was fed to that animal, if instead we used that land to grow potatoes and beans and rice and stuff, then we'd have like 16 times more food if we stopped farming cows. So yeah, we kill less plants, but also plants are not sentient. Does that make sense?
If everyone in the world was vegan, would it cause overpopulation?
No, of overpopulation of plants or animals or humans? Animals. No, there would not be an overpopulation of animals if everybody went vegan, because we would stop breeding these animals into existence in the first place. So the reason that there's 70 billion land animals on Earth being killed in farms every year is because people are buying those products like meat, dairy, and eggs. So if we stop buying meat, dairy, and eggs, those slaughterhouses will not have a reason to continue. Those farms will stop breeding animals over time, over the next 10, 20, 30 years. Farmers are going to see, oh, this meat business is dying out. More people are buying vegan meat and plant foods. And so we're going to stop breeding these animals as much, and then they'll stop breeding them entirely. And eventually, once we get enough vegans on our side, we're going to make a law that shuts down all the slaughterhouses and makes meat illegal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And whatever animals are left after that point, though, we will transfer onto animal sanctuaries or convert the factory farm into an animal sanctuary so that these animals get to live their lives happy, safe, and free.
What if some people are allergic to plant-based food? I mean,
Yeah, so I don't know how prevalent that is, and there's like 80,000 edible plants in the world, and I have a friend who's a cartoonist for The Simpsons named Dale, and he's a vegan even though he's like allergic to like 50 different foods. He still finds a way to make it work because he realizes that the animals need his help, and all he has to do is come up with a routine of, well, I was going to have to plan my diet anyways because I'm allergic to this, that, or the other thing. So I think that there's still enough plants out there that you could eat a healthy plant-based diet even if you have certain food restrictions, because we got stuff like rice, pasta, fruits, vegetables, seeds, nuts, beans, bread, and then we got vegan burgers, vegan pizza, vegan chicken, all that stuff. Okay, yeah, good question. So yeah, we're bound to cause some amount of harm just by existing, but the idea is to minimize the amount of harm we cause. So I just posted in stage 1 text, which is just 3 channels above where we're currently at. Everybody can check out stage 1 text to see all the sources that we're posting for our information and like videos and pictures and stuff, and if you want to chat. But yeah, so 77% of the world's soy, like soybeans, are fed to livestock for so that people can eat animals. So this is just one of the many ways we can point to how eating animal products is worse for the environment than eating plant products. There may be certain plant products or certain types of plant farming that are more environmentally bad than other forms of plant farming or other plants, but none of the plant farming is going to come anywhere close to how bad animal farming is for the environment, for our health, and for the animals. So just again, by the amount of food, the amount of plants that are fed to livestock is just overwhelming. It's 70 billion land animals every year across the world that we have to raise and feed, and so that's 10 times the human population. So any amount of damage that we're causing by feeding ourselves is nothing compared to what we're wasting by feeding to animals who don't need to exist in the first place. They shouldn't have been bred into existence. Then we wouldn't need to feed them every day, right? But cows, to make milk, cows eat a lot of food, way more food than we eat. They're huge. And they emit greenhouse gases through their burps and their farts, that tear up the ozone, which is also bad for humans, and the amount of water that it takes to raise cows. To, again, water all the crops that are fed to them and water them themselves. It's just way too resource intensive. So so I would just recommend that we transition to plant-based agriculture, and that type of plant-based agriculture that we do should be predominantly indoor vertical farming, where we can control for a lot of variables and make it as environmentally efficient and safe as possible.
I totally appreciate that. I can totally appreciate that, absolutely. In hen farming or in poultry, only female hens or just hens are actually being raised to end up as chicken that you're going to end up consuming, which means that all the male chickens that are hatched, they are actually being killed off straight after hatching. The farms don't even raise them. I forgot the reason why. I don't know if there's not enough meat on them or something like this.
Yeah.
So that's just an aspect that I think a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah, the males don't make eggs, so they're useless to the egg industry. You're right. That certain breed of bird won't grow big enough to have enough meat on their bones to sell for meat, and they don't lay eggs, and so they're useless to the egg industry. So the egg industry puts all the little baby boy birds on their first day of life, puts these baby boys onto a conveyor belt, and then ships them
Exactly.
into a grinder while they're alive, and they're just macerated like a
Exactly.
giant blender. So I'll post in stage one text. Everybody can check out this video called "What's Wrong with Eggs," and that'll explain everything about what's wrong with eggs. So check that out. But yeah, cool. Do you have any last thoughts? We'll move on to somebody else.
Oh, thanks. I'm not going to take up more time. Thanks for everything you do. Appreciate your work.
Okay, thank you very much. And you can join us again tomorrow and join the VC chats. There's people talking down there if you want to say more. Let's bring up No Doritos.
The first two are like just pretty standard questions I've wanted to ask vegans for a while, but I've never been able to.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so the first one was brought up a lot. Just even though that there are many plants in the world like to choose from, and some of these are hard to get, like how would you specifically find a plant that could replace all of the vitamins that you would need from meat in a daily intake?
Oh, it's easy. Yeah, so it's a good question, but it's easy. Like, again, we got the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics set is here. I'll post this in stage one text so that everybody can see the scientific sources and these vegan bodybuilders, okay? So the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics is the world's largest organization of food and nutrition experts with over 100,000 registered dietitians. And their position, a vegan diet is nutritionally adequate for all stages of the life cycle and also may provide certain health benefits for the prevention and reversal of certain diseases, such as heart disease, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, certain types of cancer, obesity. And these nutrition experts confirm that a vegan diet is appropriate for all stages of the life cycle, including pregnancy, lactation, infancy, childhood, adolescence, older adulthood, and for athletes. So that's just, a great resource right there. That's not a vegan organization or anything. They're just saying veganism can be super healthy, and there's a lot of vegan bodybuilders out there. So we got a lot of foods like rice, pasta, fruits, vegetables, seeds, nuts, beans, bread. All this stuff has all the nutrients that we need. You got to make sure, like doctors recommend, that everybody take a daily multivitamin, whether you're vegan or not vegan, just to make sure that you get everything that you need, because a lot of people's diets aren't very good, and or you can be really busy, and it can be hard to track, everything that you're eating all throughout the day. So just take a daily multivitamin. It's just one pill a day. It's not super expensive or anything. But that way you make sure you get your B12 and vitamin D and other things. But the idea is that it's not so hard. People just don't have much education about a plant-based diet, and so they don't realize how easy it can be, and that in a lot of ways they're already eating a lot of vegan products. And so like here I'm posting like a meal plan, just a picture of like Monday through Thursday meal plan for new vegans to try to get your new habit going. And psychologists say that it takes 21 days to break a habit. So whether it's stopping smoking cigarettes or stopping drinking alcohol or creating a new exercise routine or creating a new diet, all of this stuff just takes about 3 weeks, 21 days to get over, and then you're into a new routine and you don't think about it anymore. So I remember when I transitioned, when I stopped eating animals, the first few weeks were a little tough, nothing I couldn't handle, but definitely an adjustment. But I just thought about the victims instead of myself, instead of thinking about how easy it would be or how hard it would be or my taste buds or my favorite restaurants and stuff like that. I was just like, I wouldn't want to be a pig in a gas chamber in a slaughterhouse thrashing around and then have my throat slit open. So I don't want to do this to these poor little piggies, because pigs are just very similar to dogs. They're smarter than dogs. Pigs are smarter than 3-year-old children. And so I don't want to bully somebody just because they're weaker than me, just because they're not as strong as me or as smart as me. I don't want to take advantage of them. There's that quote that with great power comes great responsibility. And I just feel like these animals don't deserve to be stabbed in the throat they deserve for us to be nice to them.
I mean that all makes sense. Okay, so my second question would like if there were more open-ranged farms and they didn't actively breed the animals in there, they just let them do their own thing and would only like kill the elderly animals that are like, you know, on their last bit of life, or like the sickly animals to use as meat. Would you think that that would make the meat industry sizably better, or would you think that murdering them in general, sickly or elderly, would be bad?
That's a really good question. So I had a dog. He was a cool pit bull named Enigma, and Enigma lived to be about 14 years old. And he was actually vegan for the second half of his life. Once I went vegan, I transitioned him to a plant-based diet also. But uh, by the time he got to be 14, he was not able to walk. He was vomiting all the time, couldn't control his bowels. His quality of life had deteriorated to the point where his life really wasn't worth living anymore. And it's really sad, but so at that point I did what I thought was the nice thing to do, which is a mercy killing, it is just euthanasia. And I would want somebody to do that for me too if I was suffering and there was no way to help me. I don't want to just live a life full of pain and agony. So, um, but so I killed him at that point, but it was in his best interest, which, like you were alluding to, is not what's happening in slaughterhouses and for hunting and stuff. Like these animals are killed when they're really young, and that's the main thing we have a problem with. But so I had no desire to eat my dead dog though, for the same reason I have no desire to eat cows or pigs or chickens. Like they're not food for humans. Like we've been eating them, but that doesn't mean that we should be. But yes, it would be much less of an issue if the animal, like if you're walking through the woods and you find an animal who's already died of natural causes and you want to eat them, like even if you don't have to, if you want to, it might not be unethical, or it's definitely not as unethical as like killing a young animal. But I would still, recommend not doing it, because also if we're trying to farm these animals and wait for them to die of natural causes, like that's just not practical also because there's so many of them, and like it's not profitable for the farmer to do that, because they'd be feeding them every day, wasting money on food costs to feed these animals for like a decade when they could just kill them when they're only 6 months old, and still get the same amount of meat off of them. So it's just not practical or profitable for farmers to operate in that way. But even if it did happen, it would lead to exploitation, like extreme cruelty, like I could just tell you it would, and we just don't need to eat these products, and it's bad for our bodies because it's got all this cholesterol, and animal protein is not good for your body, and also it's really bad for the environment to raise 70 billion animals in farms, and in what you're talking about, we'd have to raise them for longer because they wouldn't be killed so early. So theoretically, it would be even worse for the environment. And yeah, it just doesn't work out. I'm sorry. Like you just got to eat vegan meat. It's good though.
I've never had like vegan meat. Like, what does it taste like?
It depends on which brand you get, and but a lot of them taste exactly the same. Like they've done blind taste tests where somebody's wearing a blindfold and they don't know which product is vegan and which is a regular animal product, and so just try different stuff. I'll post some pictures here in stage one text of some different vegan foods like spicy chicken wings that are vegan, and we've got those vegan burgers. You're probably really familiar with those, so I'll try to post stuff that you haven't seen. So here's a vegan pizza. It's a meat lovers pizza with vegan cheese, vegan pepperoni, vegan sausage. Super good. And then here's some chicken sliders, like some little chicken sandwiches that are vegan. I love these things. There's so much good food out there, especially now that veganism is going mainstream. It's more popular than when I went vegan 11 years ago. But even back then, it's like there's still rice and beans, which are super good. You put some seasoning on there, some sauce, and it's super good. But nowadays, we got all this vegan meat, vegan milk, vegan cheese, vegan ice cream. So there's just like no reason to do this to these poor little animals.